spoke for.
This was like an IMF negotiation.
So let me start down before the time.
So I give you 4 and I give you 3.
Thank you.
Yes.
So Randy, I mean, Felix, I've known him to his early morning, so the kids are in school, to enjoy this kind of political masturbation, you know, all the time when he used to address issues. And he leaves the substantive issues that affect the Ghanaian people and run around with figures that sometimes are untrue and also sometimes even do not impact on the lives of the people. And I'll take a few, then I'll come into the economy. But let me correct this falsehood he put out.
Remember, on the 2 minutes left.
Yes. On the issue of the industrialization, I insist, and I put it on record here, that no government since 1992, he jumped from the 92 and went into independence, and was speaking of Kwame Nkrumah, no government since 1992 has embarked on such deliberate radical industrialization drive than we are seeing under Nana Akufo-Addo. That is fact. In fact, he speaks of Kwame Nkrumah and all the factories that he built and state-owned. Randy, they, under the NDC, passed a law. They passed the Diversity Implementation Act to sell off state factories under his government, under the NDC. They passed out laws that sold out close to 200 factories owned by the state, rather than building new ones. So when he comes and said, how many state factories, pick our manifesto. There is no way in our manifesto that we said that Nana Akufo-Addo's government is coming to build factories as a government for the state. It is stated verbatim in our manifesto, and maybe you should read it before you comment on it. The manifesto says that in collaboration with private sector, factories will be set up in every district to stimulate local economic development. It is here in the manifesto. That is what we said. So he cannot come and sit here, set his own questions, rattle all of them, and then expect that we take it hook, line, sinker. Again, he speaks of factories that he bought a list here, about 140 companies that they have built. Randy, the 278 factories that the MPP mentioned under the 1D1F does not, and let me repeat, does not include all the factories that have been built by private people from 2017 to 2021. Those factories that he speaks of, 140 that was built under the NDC, there is no government in our republic that doesn't have private sector people build their factories. If we are to add it to the 1D1F, we are going to move into the thousands. We are speaking of a deliberate policy, industrialization policy that is geared towards stimulating local economics in the district, and that is what 1D1F is about. Now, let me quickly move to the economy and the IMF. Let us put it on record, Randy, and nobody can run away from that. There has never been any economy as worse in this country than we saw between 2013 and 2015. What is worse than a country where people cannot even have electricity to sleep in? What is worse than an economy where private factories would have to shut down their businesses and their plants because they cannot afford to buy fuel to power their electricity? What is worse than a country where you withdraw all the social safety net of the people simply because you do not have money to take care of them? What is worse than a country where the public sector people work for a year, and then you say even though they work for 3 months, you can afford to pay only 12 months, you can afford to pay only 3 months. What is worse than that? Let me quickly wrap up by going to why the NDC went into the IMF. And he sits here and says, when they were going to IMF, let me tell you, in the Our National Economic Forum, the one they had at Senchi, these were the reasons. And Randy, I want you to pay very close attention. They said, for 2 consecutive years, 2012 and 2013, macroeconomic targets have been missed. Annual budgets have not been implemented as approved by budgets. Media reviews have sometimes been used to introduce new policies rather than for an assessment of policies. Budget outcomes have deviated significantly from forecasts and therefore have tended to be perceived as not dependable. It's a tall list. There's no time. But the point I am making here is that never in the history of this country have we seen what we saw under the NDC. In our worst of forms and the MPP, even under this current condition where we are going to the IMF for balance of payment support, we are still keeping our people at work. We are still paying the salaries of our citizens. We are keeping energy, the number one critical thing that is needed to stimulate private sector and public sector on. We are ensuring that people who are required in public sector to work are recruited without keeping them at home. This is in our worst of forms. In our worst of forms, 100,000, let me wrap up. In our worst of forms, 100,000 of Ghanaian people who under their government remained at home because they could not afford, and in senior high school studying. In our worst of form in this country, under the now Adodankwa Ekufuor as we speak, safety nets like the allowances for teachers and nurses have not been withdrawn from them. That is the kind of economy that we experience. The MPP is the only, the Nana Adodankwa Ekufuor MPP is the only government since 1992 that have shown clear-cut blueprints in moving Ghana towards the industrialization. Look at what is happening in the automobile sector. Look at what is happening there. Look at what is happening in with the one district, one factory. These are factories that are there. If you come to my area, ever since I was born in the Kwapim North, this is the first time in my life that I have seen anything called factory, industry in my area. The shoe fabric is there. Aqua farms is there. Richie plantations is there. That is employing young people and they are working. There's an oil palm processing plant that is ongoing at EISH, so it is there. We can see it. So there is a plan. There is a system in place that says that if you want to invest in a particular district and feel that what you want to do would create a certain number of jobs, come to us as government. There are things that we can do to support you to be able to expand. There are even existing companies who feel that, let's say, we are doing, let's say, 10 tons of whatever we are producing, and we are employing 100 staff. What we want to do now is that if you support us through the 1D1F program, we can set up another factory in Kaswa, and there we can do 5 tons and employ 50 more people. That is, for me, is a
this never existed.
I am saying that nobody has done it as the MPP has. At least there's a clear-cut blueprint in place that is leading
the question is, are you suggesting that we have never had a clear-cut policy on this?
No, tell me one. That really is really leading this charge and getting, like we are having under the automobile industry. You know, when you speak of NDC, we say, oh, we supported Tobinco, we supported NS Chemist. Every government does those things. Okay. But how?
So what's different with this one?
Well, this one is target-based. It is focused. It says that the objective is to ensure that we send these industries to the people on the ground. That makes a lot of difference. Because listen, I live in the Kwapim North. Somebody lives in a Chebi. Somebody lives in Kade. A businessman comes all the way from Norway, says, I have money, I want to invest. And then they give him a land at Cantonment. They give him a land at Pram. So you realize that all the industries are centered either in Tema, Takrade, towards Pram areas. With this particular 1D1F policy, it is bringing industrialization very close to the people, which would ensure that even the migration that we are complaining, the rural urban migration that we are complaining about, will be curtailed. Then it would stimulate and develop the local economy. Because really, what is the point if the entire state is growing only in the cities? So anybody that wants to invest in the country comes and is Accra, Takrade, Tema, Kumasi. And yet, right after you cross the central Kumasi, there are young people there who have nothing to do, have no businesses to do. That is the difference between what we are doing under the 1D1F and what all other governments have done. What we are doing is that we are ensuring that these kind of industries would go to the people. Right. And then the people at the ground, at the bottom, would be able to benefit from it. And that's why today, this morning, when you go to Manfi, you see young people wearing yellow tops, yellow t-shirts and boots, going into a shoe factory to produce shoes. To produce shoes, and they'll be paid at the end of the month. Just think about the local economy rippling effect within the Kwapim North area. These young people, 150 young people who are working in shoe fabric, cannot afford to spend money on the barber shop, cannot afford to buy some clothes from the boutique there, cannot afford to also take care of their wives and their girlfriends so they don't lose them and all of that. That is the difference, and that is very, very critical. It is a very important component of the industrialization drive that we cannot lose sight of, and we cannot in any way downplay it. No government since '92 has been able to do it. Indeed, if any government has done that, they should tell us that there is a deliberate strategy to ensure that across the country, all 261, deliberate, that is a key word, every district across the country is able to generate on their own an industry that will employ the people within the area. And thankfully, some districts have 2 or 3. There are some districts who are also yet to receive theirs. But if you go to the Ministry of Trade, they will tell you that on daily basis they are working with private sector to look at proposals for all these other districts who are yet to also receive. So we are really far off. There's a long way for us to go as a country, and that is why we are even seeing its effect on the dollar. Because really, our net